amazing Australians and the story of their lives. You're tuned to Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald.
Hello listeners and welcome. It's wonderful to be back with you. My guest today is Noel Whittaker. Noel is one of Australia's most successful authors with worldwide sales of more than 2 million copies of his first book, Making Money Made Simple, which has set sales records across the country and was named in the 100 most influential books of the 20th century. Many of Noel's books are on audio. Noel is one of the world's foremost authorities on personal finance. In 2003, he was awarded the Australian Centenary Medal in recognition of his financial services and was made an Order of Australia for service to the community in raising awareness of personal finance. He has his own newspaper column, syndicated nationally, and his own radio show throughout Australia. So I'm sure there are not many of you who haven't heard of Noel Whittaker. Good morning, Noel. And
Thanks,
welcome.
Rosemary. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you. Noel, you're now a household name, but you started from humble beginnings on a farm where you had cows to milk, collected eggs, which you sold your teacher, and you had your own honey brand.
You've done your homework, haven't you?
I have. Was this your first step into the world of commerce?
I think so. We're on a farm, and my father was the manager of the farm. So we weren't wealthy people, but we had heaps of food.
Right.
And we had milk and cream and butter, and yes.
Yeah. So that got you realising what a bit of money can do.
I think it also reinforces that you reap what you sow.
Exactly.
You can't reap if you don't sow.
And you're never too young to start.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But your father did say to you, get a safe and secure job. So you started at the Bank of New South Wales, which of course is now Westpac. And it was a lot different banking back then, I would imagine, to what it is now.
Well, Dad was always scared of the next Great Depression.
Right.
And that was instilled in me from when I was young. And it made me very risk averse. So I joined the bank with the goal of becoming a bank accountant. And after 6 months in the bank, I moved that to bank manager.
Right.
So, because I discovered I wasn't as stupid as I thought.
Oh, okay. And I can imagine that would be so true. And so, sorry, how long were you with the bank?
I was in the bank for about 11 years, I think. And then a suburban law practice enticed me to come and work for them as a conveyancer.
Right.
And I was doing law. Then I discovered that law as a conveyancer wasn't really my thing.
Yes.
And we had a bit of a blue, and I ended up out of work.
Right, right.
And then I looked around. I went to All Staff to get a job. And he gave me the job of building up his mail division.
Oh,
He offered me the job in his own place.
Yes.
And within a year, I made that the biggest in Queensland.
Right, right.
See, I've got a talent for marketing, I think. I was the guy in the bank who always did more than they asked me.
Right, right.
When the bank said, who'd like to go to Rostrum, we'll pay, I said yes. I was the only person. Then they said, we wanted someone to lecture once a week at the staff training centre. Only I put my hand up. So that was the way it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Bank of New South Wales, I must admit, my husband's father, Rob's father, I should say, John, worked with the Bank of New South Wales for many, many years, but he retired due to ill health, I think when he was only in his 50s. And sadly for the bank, he didn't die until he was about 94. And so every Christmas they used to bring him a bottle of whiskey.
Isn't that nice?
It was lovely. It was a really lovely thought. I'm not sure that would happen today at Westpac.
I'm sure it wouldn't happen today.
So when was your sliding door moment when you wanted to, you worked out you wanted to work for yourself and you opened your own real estate and building business?
It's a long story. I left the law and I got into recruiting, but I thought there was more to life than that. But while I was doing recruiting, I did my accountancy and got the highest pass in tax in the whole country ever with 99.9%.
Gosh, how incredible.
So
yeah.
Tax I loved. Then I got a job as the assistant to the CEO of a listed property company.
Right.
We were building developments.
Yes.
And then I couldn't get on with him either.
Okay.
And I'm not hard to get on with.
No.
Then I went to work for a finance company.
Right.
And that was the worst.
Yes.
They had a staff suggestion program this month. And I said, well, it's 1974. We've got all these girls bashing out on manual typewriters. If we had electric typewriters, we could save a fortune.
Yes.
The one that won it was if we made a personal phone call, we put 10 cents in a money box. That's what should happen.
Right.
That was their thinking level.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And then I picked up a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that was the life changer. And I made 2 vows. The first vow was I would spend the rest of my life promulgating those principles, which I've done.
Yes.
And secondly, within 100 days, I'd have my own business. And that's how I really started.
And you say in actually an interview that I was listening to, a lovely interview with your son.
Oh, yes.
Which was a terrific insight into your thinking and whatever.
Yeah.
But you said that you had a whole subdivision of land out there and it wasn't selling. And so you decided that what you would do is that you would make a whole lot of signs and that you would go out there yourself and you would nail them into the ground.
No, that's not quite right.
No? Hammer them into the ground. No.
I went into business by going into business with
Yes.
one of my joint venture partners.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And I said, I've got the marketing experience, I've got the accounting experience, I've got the sales experience, and you've got the building experience.
Oh, right. Right.
So that's how it started. And we weren't selling much. And, you know, he was getting edgy. I just went for a drive on this Sunday. We had a cul-de-sac full of houses. And I found a couple gazing in the window.
Yes.
And I sold them the house.
Oh, right.
I thought, well, you don't do business sitting on your ass in the office. So I had 80 core fleet signs printed by metre by metre and stuck them on telephone posts,
Oh, okay.
all within 4 square miles.
Right.
That weekend we had the cul-de-sac was chock-a-block with vehicles. So I think I really founded the first open for house business in Australia, as far as I know.
It sounds as though you did.
Yeah.
But now tell me, in 1997, you wrote a book called Making Money Made Simple. And that's the book that sold 2 million copies.
But that's another story,
Right.
if I can do
Yes.
the story.
Did we transgress? Yes.
When I had the building and real estate company, the local hairdresser had a weekly column in the Albert and Logan News.
Oh, right, right.
And I thought, I'd like one of those,
Oh, okay.
because you pay for it.
Yes.
And 2 or 3 months went by, nothing happened. Then eventually people started to mention it.
Yes.
And then the REIQ said, we've chosen 6 people who are potential leaders in the industry. We'll fly you to Canberra if you pay your own way, and with a seminar with Doug Bellew, the famous trainer.
Oh, yes, I met Doug. Yes.
Doug, yeah. And 3 said, how dare they? How
Yeah.
dare they? 3 of us said, let's do it. And Doug, the main thing I got from that, Doug said, if you make a speech, you have to have a handout.
Right.
You must have something to give them.
Yes.
And then it just happened that the ABC rang. That column, it actually then started to go. I then got a PR guy to get that column in the Courier Mail. I started that about 1976, 77. And then the ABC rang and said, look, we want to do a broadcast on budgeting on Sunday night. I said, well, thinking about Doug, the audience needs something to look at. Now, I said, when you talk about stars, you do a map of the sky. Let's do a budgeting
Yes.
form. And they said yes, and I put that in paper. All of a sudden, I've got the paper and the ABC both promoting me.
Oh, terrific. Yeah.
Now, then the next day after that, this guy rang me and said, look, we're up from Sydney. We heard you on ABC radio. We like what you say. Would you write a book for the Daily Mirror in Sydney? I said, why not? So they gave me a $5,000 advance. I kept the copyright. The book was done. And then it didn't go ahead. So now I'm stuck with the book, which I own.
Fair enough.
And I kept saying, look, I've got to make this a book. In October 85, I did a course called Vision Quest. And at that course, they asked, on your deathbed, what would you be remembered for? And I said my goal in life was to empower ordinary people through education about money.
Right.
And that's been my track ever since. I said, okay, I'll write the book. Now, we're talking 85. I'm still talking about it.
Yes.
Because you see, a book's too big. The goal of a book is too big. But you can write 30 chapter headings.
I read that.
And having written
wonderful
30
thing.
chapter headings, you can then move along.
Great advice.
Now,
Great
it's
advice.
October 85, Boxing Day. It's Boxing Day 85.
Yes.
My wife says, start the book. I said, it's Boxing Day. Start. Write the headings.
Yes.
So on Boxing Day 85, I wrote the headings. By the end of 86, it was finished. Now, it's a big, ugly manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
Big, ugly manuscript. We'll find a publisher. Nobody wants it. There's too many money books around now, which there wasn't, you know. Then my mentor, an accountant, Gordon Miles, said, well, I know a publishing company, Boolerong Press, and they may pick it up if you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they published it, but I paid for it. As a result, I owned the copyright and still own the copyright, and I get all the profits. And it became, well, 1 in 6 households had it. It's one of the most famous books in Australia's history. It was a red $20 note cover. And also that was almost 40 years ago.
Yes.
Those people have followed me ever since. So all my constituents now have been with me 40 years.
And the younger generation, as you say, because I remember Noel came to Hobart back in the late 90s, and my son-in-law was so excited because he had bought that book, Money Made Simple, 10 years before, and he came rushing in to get Noel to sign it. But now his children, which are my grandchildren, are also reading Noel's books.
Well, see, it passes down.
Yes.
Because all I talk about is the basic principles. I've given you a copy of my book for young people, 10 Simple Steps. Well, the first simple step is you spend less than you earn. That puts you in the top 10%. The next step is that you have goals.
Exactly.
Most people don't. Now, if you spend less than you earn and you've got goals, mates, you're on the fast track. And don't fall for buy now, pay later schemes. It's just basic stuff.
And a lot of people these days don't understand that because they live on credit and money they don't have, as you say.
Yes, and I've just been given an honorary doctorate with QUT, and with my honorary doctorate graduation, I've got to address 1,000 people, and I've got 6 minutes
Right.
to give them lifelong secrets. Now, 6 minutes. And I thought, well, I can go back to principles, and the first thing my father taught me was if you do a good turn, you get 2 good turns back. Also, what goes around comes around. The more you give out, the more you get back. And the second one, when I left the law firm, I was out of a job, couldn't get a job. I applied for a job at a credit bureau, and I hadn't heard, and I rang the chairman. I was a bit brave. I rang the chairman. He said, no, you won't get it. He said, you're number 2 on the list, but let me give you some advice. Trust the universe. Let fate take a hand.
Right.
And that's what I followed ever since as well. The universe has a plan for us. On the day I met my wife, who's been with me for 43 years very happily, on that Saturday night, the girl I was dating rang up and said, I've got a better offer.
Can I just interrupt there? Because you call your wife your good luck charm, don't you?
She is the good luck charm.
Yes.
But my date said, I don't want you anymore. It was our first date, I think, or second date. Then I went on my own to a big function. There were a couple of 100 girls and 4 or 5 blokes. It was a Red Cross charity function, and that's how I met her. And we were engaged within 8 weeks.
And you had your first child when you were 41.
Exactly.
Yes. And now you've got, how many?
13
You've got
grandkids.
13
We've got 3 kids
grandchildren.
and 13 grandkids.
Yeah.
So I do believe that the universe works. I do believe we're here for a reason. And that's what I'll be telling the students. You'll have a long journey. You will miss out on jobs.
Yes.
You may have relationship breakdowns, but treat that as the universe working.
Right.
And just bounce with it.
Yes. I've got 2 of Noel's books here, as he says, and it appeals to all generations, well, right across the generations, I should say, because we've got 10 Simple Steps to Financial Freedom, which is mostly for the younger people, and then we've got Retirement Made Simple, which is obviously for people of my sort of age.
Which has a cracker 50-page ending on living happily. And I quote this quote, I can't think of the guy's name, but Clint Eastwood was in a golf buggy And the guy in the golf buggy said, "How come you still work at 88?" He said, "You don't let the old man in."
What a good
And that's how the
advice.
famous song started. You don't let the old man in. You know,
You must keep if you don't use it, you lose it, whether it's your brain or whether it's physically, isn't it?
Sure. Well, there's 4 factors for life expectancy. 1 is exercise,
Yes,
and 2 is diet,
yes.
and 3 is a sense of purpose, and 4 is a social network. They are the main factors.
That is terrific advice.
Yeah.
And you've got a plaque on your wall that says, "I am in charge of my life," and that's sort of
Well, that
reiterating
was out of
what you're
vision
saying.
quest, you see,
Yes.
because we have to stand up in front of the group. There's about 20 in the group.
Hmm.
And you had to convince the group that you would have a lifeline that you could call upon when times got tough. And mine was, I'm in charge of my life. You're not. I'm not
Yes.
being pulled by it. And I always go back to that. Wait a
Yes.
second, I don't need to do this. I'm in charge.
Right. Because I think, sadly, in this day and age, a lot of people tend to blame other people for things that go wrong with them rather than taking responsibility themselves.
Of course, and now we have influencers.
Yes.
If
Yes.
I was the world president, I would ban social media.
Right. Yes. It is actually very, very destructive, particularly for younger people.
The
isn't
harm
it?
it's doing, especially to girls, is frightening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't need to by the sounds of it, but you don't advertise your books on Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Well,
You've
I've
got different networks.
Well, I've got my newsletter with 30,000
That's a good start.
readers. Oh, yeah, no, and they just seem to work, that's all.
Yes.
Yes, every day I get emails from people saying your books have changed my life.
Oh, that is
It's a wonderful feeling.
And then for every person that emails you, they probably tell somebody else who tells somebody else, and that's how it all grows,
course.
isn't it?
And
Yes.
what you give out, you get back. I'm now like an unofficial agony aunt, I think. I would get 20 emails a day. Help me, help me, help me.
Oh.
You know.
And as we both said, that's now the grandchildren of the grandparents that you first started influencing a long, long time ago, long before influencers came online.
Yeah, but that's where the articles for that's where the ideas for my columns come from.
And you've never missed a column in 40 years.
Never.
Isn't that incredible?
I'm not letting anyone get my spot.
No, actually,
Never take a break. There's no way.
that's good advice. Isn't it?
But I got a month ago. My name's Jack and I'm 91. I've been an ANZ customer for 60 years. They've now said there's suspicious transactions on my account. If I don't explain them, they will freeze my account.
Right.
He complained they were rude to him. Now it's Austrac.
Yes.
Under Austrac rules, banks are required to report some transactions. But why a tax refund cheque for a 91-year-old man would do that? I got to the media people in ANZ Bank. They didn't want to know about it. Then they said, oh, it's all fixed. It hadn't been fixed. I got another letter from a girl. Should I put money in bullion? I'm being asked all this stuff. Now, this is Austrac stuff. But why wouldn't the bank be nice to them? The bank could have said Austrac requires us to, not you're required to. They've got no idea.
Well, that's if you can actually get to talk to somebody at the bank, or if you can actually go into a bank, because so many of them are closing up now, aren't they? And I don't think we're going to be able to get cash out of a cash machine before too long.
Well, not the cash machine so much, but basically they don't want to see people. Now, all those institutions now, it's 40 minutes on the phone minimum. We don't want to ring the bank anymore.
No.
So when you've got a term deposit, comes up for renewal, who can you talk to? They want you to go online and tick a box.
Yes.
And you can't say, oh, I can get a better rate down the road.
No.
You can't bargain. You can't talk to people.
No. And if you say that, they're just as likely to say, well, go try.
Yes.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's very hard to get a bank phone number.
Yeah.
Now, I was kicked out of St George Private Bank 4 years ago.
Right.
I was talking to a mate the other night. Now, he's started a big public company. He's a very well-known figure. He's been kicked out of St George Bank as a private client. Crazy.
It is. It just, it's a whole different world, as
It
we
is.
said, rather than the Bank of New South Wales or whatever back in the old days. But we are a changing world, and of course we've got to realise that.
Yes,
You were
but I
listening-
always believe you make it easy to do business with you.
Yes.
That's been my basic.
Right.
Don't make it
and your
difficult.
success.
Yeah, well, we sell books. If someone gets the wrong order, I say, I'm terribly sorry, keep that as a gift. There's a replacement coming. I don't say send it back to me. I don't want proof.
No.
I just take their word for it.
Exactly.
Of course.
You're listening to Lots to Chat About. I'm Rosemary Peterswald, and my guest today is Noel Whittaker, one of the world's foremost authors on personal finance. Now, Noel, Margaret Thatcher once said, good Samaritans needed more than good intentions, they need money.
Absolutely.
Do you agree?
That's one of my books.
Yes,
That's
I
right.
know.
That's right. That's right.
And so, would you like to tell us a bit more about Margaret Thatcher's thoughts and whatever? How did you come up with that?
I just thought it was a great quote. I
Yes.
mean, if I'm doing books, I go to a quote dictionary and go through and find quotes I think fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your book, 10 Steps to Financial Freedom. So what are a few of those steps?
You spend less than you earn.
Yes.
Secondly, have goals.
Yes.
Stay away from buy now, pay later.
Yes.
Get yourself a mastermind group,
Right.
a group of like-minded people who you meet with once a week, once a fortnight to help you along. Those kind of things. And never stop learning. Never stop learning.
Very, very good
Yes.
good advice. But it is a changing world out there. And I feel, I must admit, having got 5 grandchildren, I feel for them because it's going to be, I think, harder for them than it was in our day to get a foot into the housing market or a financial step ahead. Do you agree? Or is our...
It's much harder.
I mean, we had really high interest rates back in the 80s, didn't we?
When we were building houses in 1975, the average house in Brisbane suburb was $30,000. The average wage was $15,000. So it was twice the average wage. And rates were 13% or 14%. I wrote in Making Money Made Simple, if the average family on the average wage bought the average house and the wife's income went solely on the mortgage, they'd be debt-free in 5 years. The same scenario now is that in 10 years the debt is manageable on one income with interest rates of 5%. So housing is much, much more difficult, much more difficult.
Well, particularly in the capital cities.
Yes.
I think in somewhere like Sydney or Melbourne, it would be very difficult for anybody of that sort of age to get their foot in the door unless they've got the bank of mum and dad.
I bought my first house in Coopers Plains, Brisbane. It was £3,500, $7,000 in 1963. It was 3 times my salary. That's on £1,000 a year. I sold it, so say I bought it for $7,000. I sold it for $11,000. That house is now $800,000. There's nothing special.
No.
At all.
Right.
It's very basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I remember when Rob and I bought our first block of land for $1,000, and we doubled our money and got $2,000, and
Exactly.
that was.
It's great.
We thought, I wish we'd held on to it. It's probably worth, I don't know, $1 million now.
I bought a block of land in Woodridge in 1964 for £400 and sold it for £500.
Right.
It's now got a McDonald's sitting on it.
Oh, really?
Oh, there's all sorts of stories. Oh, yeah.
So estate planning, which is something that we've been thinking of lately in sorting out our wills and whatever, or redoing them. But how do you, in this world of short span marriages and whatever, how do you safeguard for your grandchildren in your estate planning?
I'm writing a book about estate planning now. It's the hardest book I've ever written. One of the main problems is every state is different. So what happens here might not happen in New South Wales. So half the people haven't got wills.
Yes.
Without a will, you die intestate, and the assets may not go where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got kids and grandkids. You've got people living longer. You've got people with dementia. You've got new forming families. So it's a recipe for potential litigation, I can tell you. Now, we've got some people we know well, and they've lived together for 20 years, lived together as man and wife. They always kept their money strictly separate. I've seen the prenup, it's watertight. She died 8 months ago, all hunky-dory. 6 months after her funeral, he filed for $1 million on the estate. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
You don't?
You don't?
You don't.
No.
and very hard to safeguard there.
Yeah.
So superannuation now is fairly complex. Do you have any sort of view as to where that's going at the moment?
Well, see, to me, superannuation is not complex.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Unless it gets very, very tricky. But the average superannuation isn't complex. You put money away in a low tax area and you can't touch it till you reach your preservation age. And there's limits to how much you can put in, and there's tax deductible contributions and after-tax contributions. And that's possibly it, really. The big danger with people is they don't understand about the death tax, because your superannuation has two parts, a taxable component and a non-taxable component. Now, it's nearly all taxable except for what you contribute in after-tax dollars. It is non-taxable. So if you've got, just the average person, they've got 600,000 in super, 500,000 taxable, 1,000 isn't taxable, there'd be 85,000 tax on the estate if that was left to a non-dependent. Now, most people don't know about it. It is very simply solved. You make sure that you give someone a power of attorney, and when your death gets near, they withdraw all your super tax-free and put that in your bank account.
Wow, well, thank you for that advice, because we were only with our solicitor the other day discussing that.
But don't forget that this is the tricky part too. Lawyers don't know about tax and accountants don't know about law. So your lawyer wouldn't have known about that, but your accountant might have, and your accountant would know about the legal stuff. That's why you need both.
But the only complication is you may not know when you're exactly going to die.
No, but most people have an idea,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
But the other thing is you can do a recontribution strategy, whereby if you and I were a couple and we both had 600,000 in super, we'd both withdraw, and we'll say we're both aged 65, 66, 67. We both withdraw $330,000 each, tax-free, because we're now at that age, and stick it straight back in as an after-tax contribution. And we've just converted $330,000 each from taxable to non-taxable.
Right.
So it's the recontribution strategy,
yes.
or whiz it out before they can get it.
What incredible advice.
And if you're worried about grandkids and things, there's
Yes.
things called insurance bonds,
All right.
which sit outside the will.
Oh, okay.
So
Yes.
if you've got 5 grandkids
Yes.
and you're frightened they're going to be challenged,
Yes.
it's not in your will. Before you die, or now if you wish to, you give them each 100,000 insurance bond. And that in need is not touched till they're 18,
Right.
and that's outside the will. It can't be challenged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That's actually a terrific advice. Have you got a book all about this?
It's all in my retirement book,
Yes.
and the estate planning book, if it's ever finished,
Right.
which I hope will be in 6 or 7 weeks.
Yes.
Will contain it in great detail.
Right, because that comes to my next question, was what was next on the agenda, and that sounds as though that's what it is. But can I also ask you, because you're obviously a very, very keen golfer,
Yes.
do you apply the same way of thinking to your golf strokes as you do to your finance, your books and
Well,
whatever?
I do my best. And if I suddenly start hitting bad shots,
Yes.
I have to go back to basics. Okay, get your stance right, rehearse your shot, hit the ground first,
Yeah.
have a target, and you get back on track.
Gosh, Noel, we could go on talking for ever and a day, and I hope that you will come back.
I'll
because
come back for you.
Thank you for that. Because there's a lot more like house downsizing and
Oh, yes.
all of that I'd love to discuss, but unfortunately we're running out of time.
We've just launched a new book on downsizing.
Oh, good.
This
good.
week it's being launched. The Downsizing Made Simple, yeah.
Well, can we ask you to come back? And,
Absolutely, of course we can. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
as my brother Eugene, who plays golf with
Yes,
you,
yes,
as you
yes,
know,
yes,
has
yes.
said Noel probably should come in on a regular basis and tell us all about this.
We
But,
do our best anyway. Yes,
yes.
of course.
So thank you again, Noel. And may I just tell our listeners that should you wish to contact Noel or to order one of his books or get some advice, it's www.noelwhitaker.com.au www.noelwhitaker, WHITTAKER.com.au.
Great friends and great chats. That was another Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald. Stay tuned next week for another amazing chat.